real speakers, real coaches, real investors, real companies. No matter your destiny, all roads lead to Real Leaders Unite.
I'm going to give you a hug for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for getting out of bed. I was like, I might be talking to myself this morning, but we're obviously very disciplined and we didn't drink too much. So good morning, everybody. Good morgen, as my family says. I have two girls and my husband is a stay-at-home dad, and he only spoke to them in German and French when they were growing up. So I literally did not know what my kids were saying for the first 3 years, which was very interesting, until one of them swore in English, and then it was all my fault. Anyway, we've got a lot to get through in an hour. I'm an Aussie, as you can tell from the accent, so I'm very much about practical, no BS. Not a lot of motivational stuff will be coming from me. I'm very much about tangible outcomes. I want you guys to go away. We're all pumped. We can all feel the energy. I was talking before that I think it's our fault that that's all happening, the weather, because we're all in this place together. And what I'm really interested in is for you to go back and actually take action, because I always love that people talk about manifestation, but manifestation without execution is really just a dream, not a reality. So we're going to work through that today, and we don't have time to literally dive in and do each exercise. So what I've done is I've actually created a worksheet for you. And when Jeff was talking yesterday, he's talking a lot about self-time. Do you remember that? I got so much out of last night, by the way. Unbelievable. Popcorn moments everywhere. But because it really resonated with me. And I think this is more of a self-exercise, but I want to work you through it, because sometimes it's a little bit hard to talk about yourself. Remove the hair. Is that better? Okay, great. Now, because I don't want to keep turning that way, I've got my slides on my phone so that I can see what I'm doing. So a little bit about me quickly, if I haven't met you already, and the slides are stuffing up, but that's fine. I am a growth advisor. I've been building and exiting businesses for about 25 years, and you'll see my lifeline in a minute. And so I am unemployable, is what I call myself. I've been an entrepreneur for as long as I know. And what I've done over the years is I'm a little bit obsessed with SOPs. I love a system and a process. And I have spent tens of millions of dollars and flushed it down the toilet on all sorts of initiatives that haven't worked. And it's your own money when you're investing as a venture capitalist. So whenever that happens, I say 2 times and you're a dummy. I make sure that it's documented. And when it does work, I always put it into a run sheet and an SOP that goes into a learning management system. So here, who knows EOS here? Great. Huge fan of EOS. And it's great to have the operations in place for growth, but EOS doesn't address the growth. So basically what we've done is we've created entrepreneurial growth systems, which is once you have that infrastructure, how do we grow your business at scale? Predictable revenue is really important, as opposed to everybody will tell you, agencies particularly, that marketing is this crystal ball. It's actually not. We're meat suits. It's all about the why, it's all about the value. So I'm going to take you through a couple of SOPs that you can put into your business around personal branding. So who here is currently very active on their personal brand? Anyone? Great, own it, own it. Most people don't do it for 2 reasons: the time commitment, and also the I don't want to be famous and I don't want to talk about myself. So I need all of you to get over that, because, and I'll show you why in a minute, because it's really important that we step up and share our story. And I'm going to show you how to do that in under 3 hours a month with some support. How does that sound? Great. So that's me. That's my intentions for today. All right, so when it comes to personal branding, I like just the trifecta. When I do something, I like them to have lots of legs. And what I mean by that is I run businesses. I'm for profit and purpose. So it's really important that this is a lead gen strategy for you. Your personal brand needs to be a lead gen strategy. And of course the purpose and the why. Why are you here? Why were you put on this planet? You're extremely beautiful, special human beings that have been chosen. You have your calling, and we need to share that and create that legacy. And last but not least, which is what Kevin was alluding to, is what is our collective impact? Sure, you know, I don't have millions of followers, but between all of us, if we supported each other and made a commitment today to look everybody up and actually follow each other, and then delegate it to your PA to make sure that each one of you, I like and comment on every single post. You know, when we start getting 100 and 200 comments, which is achievable in this room, people stop in their feed. 97% of perception is reality online. I mean, how fucked up is that? Says a lot. But if that's the case, then let's all support each other so that when we post something and there's 130 likes, somebody goes, wow, I might read that, okay? So how do we do collective impact? So 5 reasons, if I need to convince you on why it's important to build a personal brand. First is bandwidth. I am in YPO, and then before that I was a president of EO, and now I was in the birthing of giants, now I'm in Titans. You meet thousands and thousands of people that you have a strong connection with, but how do we stay in contact with them regularly? And you obviously I have 37 cousins. So you just can't keep up with hellos on that scale, or birthdays on that scale. Then you have obviously stakeholders. I mentored 70 YPOers last year, so there's those that I want to show support to, and then there's people who actually want to hear what you have to say and be inspired by that. I'm very passionate about the next generation of female entrepreneurs in particular and bridging that gap. So how do we make sure that they're hearing from us on a regular basis? The second one is about your journey. How many entrepreneurs in here have had more than 3 businesses in their lifetime? Yeah. We move, right? This is a growth journey. Like everything's a journey, not a destination. And as we move through, if we tie the business to our identity, we have to keep reinventing ourselves all the time, right? And CEOs, the average tenure, I think, is 5 years now. So it's really important that they also work on their personal brands because they're going to be changing roles all the time. And it looks a bit weird if you're just talking all about this and the next minute they're talking about something else. Have you noticed that? And you're like, oh, that was a bit weird. So we need to do this for sharing our journey. If you're in EO, you would have started with a thing called a lifeline where you map out your timeline. So a lot of people say, well, if I'm not speaking about my business, I don't really know what to share about myself. So in your workbooks is a really great exercise called the timeline. And what that is going through and mapping the highs and the lows in your life, right? And in full, we said it's confidential. I'm sharing all of mine with you as well. So I've mapped it from when I first started a business at 19, and then, you know, you can go through, I don't know why my lines aren't showing up, but you can go through and you can basically map your highs and your lows. So, you know, when I got high, when I sold a business, and when I walked out of my earnout, and then all the staff walked out with it, which led to a lawsuit. It's like right down here, right? So you're going up and down, and you're mapping that out as to what happens and looking for direct correlations. Not that you're going to share all of that in one post, but it's more for inspiration so that you can do reflection and then share. Experience shares are the most important thing. We heard about the you shouldn't rule. This is also about, in my experience, this is what I've had, because what I love about organisations like what we're all involved in, EO, YPO, Real Leaders, the great thing about it is that we're here to share experiences so that we can get there quicker and we don't have to experience those ourselves and learn through each other. So that's a really great exercise to do, and you'll find that you'll get a lot of stories out of that, and sharing your timeline with whoever your journalist is also a great idea. The next thing is obviously sales. So everyone's complaining to me, coming to me as a growth advisor and going, oh, my cost per acquisition has gone up. I'm like, that's actually not the important thing. The important thing, pardon? Yes, you know what that's like, cost per acquisition? Yeah, they're all complaining, right? And for me, it's not about the cost per acquisition, it's about the lifetime value. So how do we, once we acquire them, everybody goes, oh, we've we've won a client, fantastic, and then they go back to wanting to hunt. My thing is now the work starts, because the value of your company is based on the LTV. The profit is based on the LTV. So when it comes to selling, excuse me, and everyone's complaining about pay-per-click, I'm talking to them about organic. Human beings are still meat suits, right? We might have all this great technology, but at the end of the day, we still behave in the same way. So 73, who's B2B here? Anyone? Okay, 73% of your business is still coming from organic sources. And it's called EAT. It's positioning yourself as experts, authority, and trusted. And a personal brand is a great way to do that. And it's 48% for direct-to-consumer and product-based businesses. And every business I go into, I say, how much are you spending on pay-per-click? Well, then why isn't your marketing budget 73% of it organic? So you can afford and justify investing in your personal brand because it makes business sense, okay? A lot of people think it's an extra thing, but it's very deliberate. There's a way in order to acquire leads through LinkedIn. I'm going to focus on LinkedIn if that's okay, because that's one of the EGS modules that we have. And then, of course, trust. I love reading about people's behaviors in relation to buying, and one thing is that trust is at its lowest since they've been measuring it in humanity. What do you think AI is going to do to that? So what do we do when we don't trust? I believe, this is the 5-star hippie in me, I believe we are going back, like Jeff said, to communities and connection, which is why this is so important. I mean, I love real leaders, but how much better is this than the virtual ones we had to do during COVID, right? We're going to go back to community. We're going to go back to connecting, because I know I can trust you because I can kind of touch and feel and go, hey, you're a good cuddler. I like my cuddles. So as the rise of AI comes, we need to think about trust. And if you start now with your personal brand, you're going to be able to counteract that when people feel like they can't trust brands. And of course, there's the 70% of customers who feel more connected if the CEO or the founder is actively out there on social, right? So I don't care if you're B2B, D2C, whatever you want to call yourself, fintech, investor, I'm bringing back H to H. Bring it back. You know that song? Human to human. That's what I want to be as a business. Don't put me in a box. Remember, did everyone go to Stigmas yesterday? Don't put me in a box. I want to be H to H. I think that's what we need to bring back, and personal branding is great for that. And lastly, airtime. Everyone's on their phones. And if it's not you, then it's these people. Well, I mean, guys, they're profiting. They're making it rain. And it's extreme excess and greed. And it's what people think business is, because 97% of perception is reality. And that's what they're seeing. So get over yourself and do something about it, right? And personally, got a slide that's missing. Here we go. Personally, that's my beautiful family. I've got 2 daughters, and they're teenagers, so they don't say much, but they're watching. And you do it for them to be the role models for the next generation. Because people are watching, they're watching, their friends are watching, right? That's the reason that we're doing this, is for them. So when I studied at the Birthing of Giants, does anyone know Jeff Hoffman? He's exceptional man. Love, 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 love. That's somebody to follow, by the way. Great inspiration. Another one is Paul Polman, Net Positive. These are all my favorite people. And there was about 60 of us in the room that were doing the Birthing of Giants. And he said, you think you're all here to learn how to grow your businesses? And we're like, yeah, we're hungry, let's go. And he said, no, you're here because the collective, you've been hand-selected, and the collective impact of all of you will equal 1 Oprah. Now, I don't know about you, but Oprah and Dolly Parton are like my two favourite women on the planet. I'm such a groupie. And that's the issue, right? We keep thinking, well, we're not Oprah. And there'll never be another Oprah, right? Until we can clone her, there won't ever be another Oprah. But if all of us just give a little bit of ourselves, we can have the same sort of impact, right? And then that's an ecosystem that grows. So he told us all, get over yourself and step up, which was kind of funny. All right, workshop time. I told you had to work. Now, with anything like SOPs, before you get into SOPs, we need strong foundations, right, to pull from. So we're going to work through a couple of exercises. I'm going to give them to you as my personal experience shares, so that then you can reflect on your own. Take some notes, just so that while you're in the flow, you've got them there for future reference, and then you can spend some time in it, you know, when you go home or on the plane. Who loves riding on the plane? I literally pretend that the screen in front of me is broken every time I get on the plane, because I just think this elevated height and the lack of phones and interruptions, it's just such a beautiful place to reflect. So the first thing is your origin story. So this is really, okay, I said I wouldn't do this, but I will. An origin story in personal branding is a narrative that transforms people back to a pivotal moment when you first realized your true calling in life, offering insights into the circumstances and experience that shaped your journey and passion, right? Now, this is particularly important if you're presenting. Good presenters, and I have a whole EGS module on how to create a very compelling speech as well. If you want that, I can send you that module. But it always starts with that origin story. And it's usually something that happened to you before you were 15. So we've got to dig a little deep here, right? And it's a 5%er for those of you who have been trained in EO. So it's those things that you probably wouldn't share with most people, right? Maybe after a few drinks last night, you said, oh my God. But it's really a true 5%er. So I'm going to share with you mine so that I can give you an example. So I was born in Weipa in Australia, which is right at the tippy top, the sharp bit of Australia. Lots of crocodiles, rich in Indigenous culture, almost untouched, which was magical to grow up in. Rainforest, Daintree behind me, Great Barrier Reef in front of me. So it's kind of like, if you're looking for nature on steroids, like this is the place. It's just magical. And so I would spend my days, we had an outdoor school, you know, it was mostly Indigenous. And so I grew up with Indigenous culture. And then in the afternoons, you know, the old bicycle, remember, no phones, we were trekking through the rainforest, or we were snorkeling, and the fish was just incredible. I literally can't go to the Great Barrier Reef anymore because I just cry. It's quite sad. And so when I was 9, I'm a creative, by the way. I love to sing, paint, poetry, all that sort of stuff. So when I was 9, we had an excursion. We all got on a bus and they took us out to where your parents worked. Now, my mother has never worked. She quit school young and still to this day doesn't have a driver's license. So we all go to my dad's mine site. And we get out and they put little hard hats on us all and these big vests that look more like dresses. And we get out and we're standing in front of that hole in the ground. And if you've ever been to a mine site, that hole is way bigger than anyone can ever imagine. I mean, you see it from space, right? And I was devastated because I'm like, where is all the rainforest and where are all the animals? I couldn't understand it. So I went home that night and I was beside myself. I've always been a little dramatic. And I said, I don't understand why you would do this. Like, this is ridiculous. You know, at that age, you don't even comprehend. Why would you do such a horrible thing? And I'll never forget it. My dad looked at me and he said, don't be so ungrateful. This is how we make money and put food on the table. This is business, girl. And then I locked myself in my room and didn't eat for 2 weeks. They were literally putting crackers under the door because I was like, no! But at that moment, I said, that is not good enough. I didn't know how I was going to solve it, but I was like, business doesn't need to do this in order to put food on the table. Like, why are we doing this, right? And I spent my whole life supporting businesses that were trying to be net positive and trying to give more than they take. Okay? Get it? We all got a moment in mind. If you don't, ask your parents, because they hold on to a lot of those stories. So that's your origin story. So I want you to spend some time thinking about a time when, because there was a moment that changed your trajectory forever. You were born with your seed of potentiality and your calling. Like that was just given to us. But there is a moment when it's ignited. And it's usually when you're young. The next thing is defining your values. And you rarely have more of 4 or 5 values, 5 sort of tops. And they rarely don't change in your lifetime unless there's a significant event, right? And when I look back on my lifeline and I look at those low moments, it was always because I compromised one of these values. So the reason my first business that I built and exited absolutely went pear-shaped, and that was a low moment for me in my career, was because I compromised on the impact and community piece. I was a very lazy genie. I said, I just want to build a business and exit it for over $10 million, which seemed like a great goal, but I didn't put detail around it. I didn't say, I want to sell it to somebody who will take care of my people, that will continue to grow when I'm no longer there, right? And so it imploded. And you can usually audit most things in your lifeline against these core values, and one of them is out. And sometimes I get the best opportunities. You know, after 25 years in business, you start to know everybody, they start to know what you're capable of, and then I audit it and I'm like, I'm gonna make a lot of money, I'm gonna make a lot of impact, and I start doing it, but then one of these is out. And it's a no from me. What we say no to is more important to what we say yes to. So there is a couple of pages there of some exercises, some questions to warm you up to define your why. And it's usually in the actions and the things that we're doing every day and how we show up, and it's a bit of a subconscious thing. So we're going to pull the subconscious forward and we're going to answer some of those questions. So when I look at things like freedom for me, when I'm most unhappy in business is when I'm stuck in an office with 4 walls and everyone turns up at 9 and leaves at 5. I'm all about freedom. So no wonder I started investing in brands that were online because I didn't physically want an office. I wanted to be able to travel, make money when I sleep, you know, and be able to run it from a computer because I wanted that freedom. So that's another thing that's really important to me. If they say, yes, but you need to be located, we need you on site, you need to move your family, I'm like, it's a no from me. But there's no judgment on what they are. They're yours, by the way. But what's great about your values is when you can share them with a journalist or somebody who's writing about you, it prompts them for questions. So talk to me about creativity. How are you creative? What does that mean? And how does that relate to business? Then you go, oh, well, I grew up painting and being on this side of the brain. And then when I became an entrepreneur, creativity is one of the most important things about being an entrepreneur. We're constantly having to be creative and problem solve and all of those sorts of things, right? So that's how it relates. But to somebody else, they're like, how did a medical illustrator, that's what I studied at university, end up being a venture capitalist? Like, it seems like a big disconnect, right? But it's a great way to start that conversation. The next thing is called the compass. Who has read Simon Sinek's Start With Why? Love it. But like everything, where is the section at the back that gives you the SOP? I read the book and I'm like, I'm so motivated. I have no idea how to do that. So I created the process. So, and it's a combination of a couple of things. An elevator pitch, and this is before we started making ridiculous high rises that stick above the clouds. But I feel like everyone's elevator pitch is like that. Have you been to a barbecue and you ask somebody what they do and 10 minutes later you're like, I still have no idea. I'm looking, I'm trying. It's meant to be an elevator pitch is that you're going 3 or 4 stories, right? So it's meant to take a very short time for you to be able to explain very concisely what it is that you do. And when Simon Sinek talks about creating your why and verbalizing your why, he says that you don't talk about yourself. You talk about the how and how it will impact you. So I loved the exercise that we all started with a couple of days ago where we had to say it in 7 words. But still, some of you, I didn't know what it actually was that you did and who you served. So I couldn't self-identify that, oh, I'm a potential client and I have that need. So I'm going to give you a little bit more than 7. And at the top, we say what. This is what I do, bang, bang, bang. And it's meant to be very concise. So, hi, I'm Tamara Loehr. I'm a growth advisor to conscious companies. I couple my EGS modules with the top 1% of global talent in the Philippines because I believe in business as a force for good. Right? So you get a fair idea. You go, oh, values alignment, check. Offshoring, yeah, interested in that potentially. EGS, you might be a little bit like, ooh, what's that? So you can be, alluding to certain things that prompt more questions, right? And then you also know what I do, that I'm not interested in talking to you if you're Grant Cardone, which you've heard firsthand on Clubhouse. I love that we connected because I was on stage with Grant Cardone on Clubhouse and he had a go at me, which was very funny because I said, you're talking I want to talk more about we, and actually everyone who's listening, entrepreneurship is not about making it rain, it's actually about the impact we can make. And I think he shut me down pretty quickly, didn't he? To which I said, I'm going to go now, that was my perspective, and if you don't condone business in this manner, because it was pretty awful, it was like a Shark Tank on steroids is probably what it was. I said, you can leave, and literally 6,000 people in that room left with me. And then I got a hate note from him, but which I'm still prompted to kind of put some pay-per-click behind and saturate. Back to the plan. So it's 3 by 3. So human beings can remember 3 by 3. And what's really important about that, if you do a compass for your business, because I have one for my business and I have one for me personally, this is my personal one, and I'm happy to share with you examples of ones for business, but everyone can remember 3 by 3. And when I first go into a company and start doing due diligence, whether I'm advising or investing, I go around and I say, what do you think it is that you do here? And I ask everyone. And I get completely different answers from every single person, and it's because it's from either their job description, their role, or their agenda, right? So what we want to do is make sure everybody can articulate very quickly what it is that you do, and everyone can remember 3 by 3. So they go in verticals. So the first one is all about your professional career and your zone of genius, as I call it. So then how 1, 2, and 3 relate to that. So my zone of genius is obviously being a growth advisor and helping companies from 10 to $1 billion commit to profit and purpose to create predictable revenue and build in-house capability with agile, affordable, and scalable workforces. Own your growth. So I also put in my little like taglines of, you know, what I would perhaps have as a heading, right? Own your growth. I'm an investor. And I'm a mentor. I've mentored over $6 billion in combined revenue last year, all committed to profit and purpose. And from that, the best practices of what they're winning at also go into those growth systems so that we can all collectively share in that win. And then so on. So the second column, what's your company? I obviously need to do a spring clean, but I collect lots of companies. I have EGS, Entrepreneurial Growth Systems. I have Concertina, which is specializing in the top 1% in offshoring. I've been offshoring for 15 years. And a lot of people think of VAs and low-level jobs. I'm dealing with 10-year plus CFOs, CMOs, the high-level people, project managers and the like. And then Beusail Academy, which is my mentoring program, where we come together and share. And it's mostly YPOers. And then the last one is your purpose. I believe in net positive. I believe in ethical offshoring. It's taking off. Let's make sure that if we're going to utilize this, we do it the right way. I don't want people commuting 3 hours and being away from their families. I get to be with mine. So we let them work from home. We have a relief fund. We pay for medical for them and all their children. And we invest $12,000 in certified training the day that they start. So all of those things are really important. And then, of course, the breadwinning mum, which, you know, talks to my love and my dislike, I guess, of the gap of female entrepreneurs. 2% get to 1 million. So, and it's because they're juggling so much, right? So how do I inspire them to be able to go from a breadwinner to an entrepreneur? So that's really part of my narrative as well. And then you can list some other things that might be relevant for content that they can talk to. So you can all put real leaders in as your awards. Okay, now the execution plan. Now I'm going to run with you. So you've got your foundations. So we have our compass, we have our guiding principles and values, right? And we've done our lifeline so that we can give some reflection to the journey and we can call on those past experiences. Now I'm going to show you how I do this on steroids. Who wants to know how to do it in under 3 hours in carpet bomb? Awesome. Okay, I'm going to take you step by step through it so it's really clear how easy it is. So the first thing is we create our foundations, right? The second step is that this beautiful woman, Mickey, she interviews me for an hour once a month. And I usually have my EA do it when I'm commuting and they record it basically. But she's got those foundations to be able to think about questions. So she doesn't need to research. She's got all of this really rich information in your foundations that she can start from, okay? And then she, being a journalist, is obviously looking at what is trending, what are people talking about, and how can I relate questions back to that. So she interviews me for 1 hour a month, and I'm usually multitasking. That recording then goes to our offshore copywriters and journalists, and then they create a heap of content, both around your 9 pillars of content in your compass and what you've shared in that interview. And who uses monday.com? I love that thing. I wish I had invested in that. Each one of those pillars is a section in Monday with content, and their job is to create me 20 pieces of content in each pillar. And then my job is to go through it. Well, actually, I delegated a step further. I get my business partner and I actually approve each other's content because sometimes I feel like it's the Tamara fest and I'm like, oh God, not another freaking article about me. So we do each other's. We actually delegate that you approve my content, I'll approve yours, because we just get a little bit self-conscious, I guess, about it. So there's 9 pillars of content and we go through and we proof it. And then we use Loom videos. We heard about that yesterday. Where are you? Yeah, thank you for that. And I Loom through them. So I basically go, yep, that's great, but you've gone a little bit too hard on the rah-rah female. I actually believe in masculine and feminine energy. So you can give all the feedback that you need, and then that becomes a video for future reference for when people are writing for you. So we do that very quickly, and then of course they have access to my LinkedIn. And people think that I live on LinkedIn, and I couldn't even tell you how to go in and find a message. I'm terrible at it. So they schedule all the content, and then that goes out. So 2 to 3 posts a week is what we're looking for, and that boosts the algorithm. And there's another thing that boosts the algorithm, which I'll show you in a minute, which means that we show up in more people's feed. And that is the mission here, is for our content to show up in the feed, not Grant's, right? I'm having to dig at him, but I feel like that was such a fun conversation. All right, does that make sense? Right? Very simple, not hard. You guys run businesses, you know how to do this. You've just got to get out of your own way because it's a personal brand. Forget about it, make an SOP. The next thing is sales. So profit and purpose, right? So the old school way of getting sales is very expensive because it's one-on-one. They go and drop in on people, they go to expensive conferences, all that sort of stuff. I believe salespeople, I can say this in this room, I think, should be closers only. I do not give them the luxury of hunting and gathering. It just costs too much for my cost per acquisition, and that also results in a lower multiple at exit. So what I do is I pair a salesperson or myself. So I also do outbound. I deal in higher whales is what we call them. So companies that are over 100 mil and then we have people in the company that do the 10 to 100. So I have a target list of people that I'm getting from Zoom Info that meet my client qualifier, and we're warming up about 800 a month. Actually, she's doing about 250 a week for me because I am liking and commenting and doing all of that and posting. LinkedIn goes, oh, this woman loves LinkedIn. I'm going to let her have more connections. I'm going to let her have more outbound. Does that make sense? Okay. So 800, which means that process, and I'm going to show you how it works, that process leads to a meeting being booked, which is the job then to turn up, build the relationship and close, right? So imagine what it would look like if you're thinking about, and we were talking about scaling your B2B business, what would it look like if we went from them doing 160 to 800 with those qualified leads of activity and tripling the amount of touch points? So I'm going to take you through how this works. So we have our EGS module and we train them in how to do this process, and we have an offshorer who's a LinkedIn outbound specialist. They normally can sit across 2 profiles and do that work. The reason you don't use a bot is that LinkedIn, as soon as it finds bots, it shuts down the bot and then it shuts down everybody who has been using that bot, right? So we don't want to risk losing what we've invested in our profiles. And I think Instagram now, for anyone who bought likes, they've all been shut down, which is what a lot of people did, right, at the start. They might have bought a couple of thousand to give themselves a little kicker, and now that's coming back to bite them. So what we do then is we map out what is that sales process, which is called a customer value journey, and we write detailed scripts. I'm going to show my age here. Who did those books where you choose your own adventure? Loved them. I just bought them for my kids and they're not interested at all. So what it does is it basically starts, you can't just go out, who's got those LinkedIn messages where it's just like so obvious that they're trying to sell to you, right? Terrible, like delete. So what we're doing is we're doing multi-layered messaging based on your real words. So I role play and I say, okay, when you actually network, what is the sort of conversation that you're having? Which is normally like, oh, I see that you're in real leaders. That's great. I'm a conscious leader too. It's wonderful to connect with you. We start very basic. And we can go up to 5 to 8 messages deep before we place a call to action, which is 90% value and 10% suggestive sale. Okay? It's still not buy my shit. It's 90% value, 10% suggestive sale. So depending on their answer, we send them left, we send them right. There's this whole sequence. They're your words, but the offshorer has that script. They do not have permission to ad lib and pretend to be you. So the other half an hour that you have to spend a month, because we're at 1.5 hours for personal branding, the other half an hour is that all the messages that are a little bit like, you might come back to me and go, oh, how do you know Mark? Well, she's not going to know that, right? So then that goes into an Excel, a Google Excel, and I go in and I pump out all the answers in there. Again, I don't go into LinkedIn. I just go bang, 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 bang. Or my EA phones me and says, you're 2 days behind in responding to the latest LinkedIn messages. And while I'm driving, I just, talk to her about, oh, Mark. Oh, yeah. Tell them that, we're together and in YPO, and we were one of the founding members of the Impact chapter or whatever it is, right? And then they go in and respond on your behalf, and you keep these going. So then you also do the same thing. So that's the scripts. Then we take our target market, so our Zoom info list, and we upload that list into LinkedIn, and we send ads to them, and then we like and comment with them. So I'll break this down. So actually, I'll go to the next one and show you how it works. So this is our Google Excel document, our tracker, as we call it. All those LinkedIn profiles from that Zoom info list are here, and they're going in with your profile and they're just liking and commenting a couple of times a week for up to 5 weeks. People on average get between 7 and 12 likes and comments on their LinkedIn posts. Not these people, because we're all going to support each other and have hundreds, right? So, but in general, And they usually know everyone. So when I see you commenting on I'm going to be like, she looks lovely. Who is this person? Have I met her? And I'm going to go into your profile. And if you haven't posted, then it's going to be very pointless, right? They're going to go, why is she liking and commenting and she never shares? That seems a bit odd. But if I look and then I see all the things you're doing, then I might start to get to know you. You're on my radar, as they call it, right? 15 touch points before anyone will even give you a minute of their time. So this is where we're starting that process. So they like and comment for about 5 weeks until we send them the first message, which is just going to be very general and just reaching out for a connection, right? So that's basically what we're doing. And then the other thing that we're doing is ads. Now, LinkedIn ads do not work for conversion. They've got a terrible conversion rate, so your cost per acquisition is really high. What they do work for is warming. So then I have these 3-minute hacks that I created for YPO that are around, how to turn your salespeople into closers only. And, 3 concise, because remember, my client has money, no time. So it's about how do you give them lots of value really quickly. 4 out of 5 of my videos are watched by that target market. 3-minute video. So that's no different to you and me meeting and having a 3-minute conversation here. They're spending time with you in your zone of genius. And I don't sell anything, it's just here's something that can help you, right? So they're usually hacks on the EGS modules that we do. So now they've spent 3 minutes with us watching a video, maybe 1 or 2. I have about 4 or 5 that get fed to them. It's the same list that we're liking and commenting. And then at the same time, they get a connection request. What do you think our chances are of them actually accepting that? It's pretty high. Exactly. So everything that we do, we need to invest time in building strong relationships, because what's the most important thing, the acquisition or the LTV? Yeah. So that's how we use the ads. And then the script goes all the way through to, actually, there's a few things that I think we might be able to help you with. Mine is a red, blue, black assessment. So what I say is, have you done offshoring before? A lot of people say, I've had an offshoring fail, it was a nightmare. I'm like, yes, it's usually due to the lack of SOPs. It's hard enough to do sales and marketing onshore, let alone trying to figure out how to do it on the other side of the world. You need to couple the two together. I'm happy to jump on and show you a couple of examples that relate to B2B and walk you through them to see if they're relevant for you and if they'd be helpful. So I'm not selling anything at this stage, right? Or you can send them to an event. Hey, I'm having a breakfast. I'd love you to come along. It'd be great to meet you. And then I can introduce you. They probably know a few people there, right? So wherever you're leading them, there's that action that needs to be taken. And what we do is for our salespeople is we do it as a Calendly link or a OneSub link. The salesperson only knows that they have that lead warmed. When that is done, the offshore then goes into Pipedrive or HubSpot or Salesforce, preferably not Salesforce. It's so not user-friendly. And then they put that in as a warm lead. They tag that salesperson. They can see all the history, and then they show up to the meeting. And what are they going to do? Are they going to sell, or are they going to do 90% value? 90% value at that meeting, right? So that's sort of the process, and then we have a scorecard where we're tracking how many people are we warming up, how many of those converted to a connection, how many of those went to a meeting, all the way through to LinkedIn reviews. My LinkedIn specialist offshore also then circles back and says, you've now had this client for 6 months, can we now get a LinkedIn recommendation? And we send that as well, because people look at this stuff. People look at LinkedIn case studies, right? I notice that when my team's warming people, they're going and they're looking at my recommendations. They're looking at my case studies, because we get that fed to us, right? We say, this person just looked at your case studies. So that's sort of the process. Okay, who is interested in doing personal branding on steroids? Great. Who here wants to grow their impact and then their bottom line as well, their profit? Awesome. Well, what's mine is yours. So that's the sort of budget that you're looking for a lead gen specialist per person for an offshore trained lead gen. That's full-time, working 40 hours a week, liking and commenting. Because you can imagine by week if we're putting in 200 people a week, they've got over 800 people that they're having to go into their profiles every week and like and comment. It's quite an onerous, big job, right? But remember, we're only doing qualified leads. So they're only people that we know that we really want to target. And then the personal posts, what I tend to do is Mickey rings you for an hour, she does that and then manages, and no one needs a full-time copywriter most of the time. So what I do is I share it between 2 or 3 of you, and then it's important that it's the same person all the time because they get to know you and they get to know the sort of content that you like. So that's sort of the budget of what you're looking at. So this isn't a huge exercise. I don't know if anyone's paid for a PR agency before, but the retainer alone is like $5,000 a month and you're like crossing your fingers and your toes and you're hoping. That is what I call vanity metrics. It's egotistic. You want to be in a magazine, you want to be in Forbes. I can tell you right now, if you want to be in Forbes, you can literally buy spots to talk about your expertise. So you know how we talked about the pay-per-click budget and how much that costs? Let's give some of that budget back to organic traffic and let's get you a column in entrepreneur.com talking about your zone of genius. That is better money well spent because people are going to do Google due diligence on you and see where you're ranking, because that's called domain authority. You get high up on the list. I think that's better money spent than something that comes and goes in my feed in 5 seconds. All right, I think I'm over time. If you want to take action, I am committed. Normally Mickey does the foundations. I'm committed to personally doing your foundations for you. That's 3 hours, stuck with me. And we're going to get to know each other very well. And I'll help you create your foundations because it's one of my favorite things to do. And then you can look at, okay, how do you hire somebody? There's plenty of offshoring places. You're welcome to my EGS. But how do we get you sharing? And I do not want I don't have the time as an excuse, because my daughters, the planet, your future employees, they all need to know about you because we're going to make their lives better. Okay? Who's with me? Who's with me, Simpkins? Great. Great. My work here is done. Thank you.
Real speakers. Real coaches. Real investors. Real companies. No matter your destiny, all roads lead to Real Leaders Unite.